Recently, the simp economy in China has collapsed, and it raises some important questions about how we should interpret this and what it signals. First off, let's clarify what the simp economy is. In the world of consumer spending, men have often been viewed as having less purchasing power than pets. To drive frequent spending among men, businesses have found that the best tactic is to get them to buy gifts for the people they care about, whether it's cosmetics, fresh flowers, everyday items, or luxury goods like branded bags and jewelry. The target market for these businesses is primarily women, but a significant share of the spending comes from men trying to impress them. This trend of spending money to win over the opposite sex is what we refer to as the simp economy. For years, society has perpetuated the notion that if a man wants to get close to a woman, he needs to treat her to meals, take her to movies, go shopping, buy gifts, offer a dowry for marriage, and even invest in a car and a house. After marriage, there are various occasions, like Valentine's Day, 520, Qixi Festival, and Double 11, each accompanied by their own marketing campaigns. The prevailing idea is that a man who spends money on you may not necessarily love you, but if he doesn't spend anything, he definitely doesn't care. When the economy is thriving, people tend to overlook this. It's just seen as spending money to buy happiness. Hence, the simp economy has been somewhat inflated. Many businesses have capitalized on men's anxieties about dating, encouraging women to adopt more extreme views on relationships to maximize profit. However, this model is no longer sustainable. The economy is in a downturn, and the financial power of simps has significantly dwindled. They can't support an economic cycle based on marriage and romance anymore. Many have either drained their savings on relationships or lost substantial assets after buying homes. With rising costs of living and job market pressures, young people are losing faith in the future. There's a saying that goes, "In the temple of wealth, you can't rise after kneeling for too long." Love is completely disregarded. Nowadays, many young people feel that making money is more important than pursuing romantic relationships, and balancing a relationship with a busy work life has become a burden. This shift is palpable, and it reflects a certain social progress. The pressure is now so great that many can no longer pretend it doesn't exist. In China, for example, during the 520 celebration, many men have shifted from giving extravagant gifts like a 1,314 yuan red envelope or 999 roses to opting for simple presents like a 100 yuan massager. The gifts targeted at simps on platforms like Xinyu have virtually vanished, and during the 618 shopping festival, sales in categories such as cosmetics, perfume, skincare, and diamonds on Tmall have all declined. The big spenders on live streaming platforms have also become scarce. It seems that the acknowledgement of this trend has come a bit late. In recent years, social opinion has aimed to funnel the savings of multiple generations into the hands of one woman, using women's own irrational spending habits to boost domestic demand and revive the economy after the housing market took a hit. However, housing prices and inflation have already drained the savings of many in China. The rise of the simp economy has only squeezed the limited resources of both parents further, leading to increased debt and excessive spending. This cycle can't continue. The collapse of the simp economy is inevitable. Some people believe that ordinary working-class men have run out of money, can't keep up, and have chosen to take a back seat during this economic downturn. Coincidentally, this group includes many young men who are unloved and unemployed. Fortunately, their expectations are relatively low, so a few kind words might help ease their frustration. Perhaps in 2 years, the economy will bounce back, and these men might return to their old spending ways, or they may decide to move on for good. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think the simp economy has truly come to an end?
This year's Qixi Festival marked a notable increase in male spending, challenging the old stereotype that men's consumption is somehow inferior. However, it's worth mentioning that this trend isn't about spending for love. Instead, more and more men are focusing on self-care. Younger men, in particular, are channeling their money into gaming. Recent data shows that revenue in this sector has grown nearly 4% compared to 2022. Additionally, men are taking a growing interest in skincare. Those days when a single bar of soap sufficed are long gone. In one shopping mall, Sales of men's beauty and skincare products skyrocketed by 200% year-on-year. Beyond gaming and skincare, another thriving market for men is leisure activities, especially fishing. The fishing market was valued at a whopping 4.6 billion yuan in 2022, and by the first half of 2023, sales had already hit 3 billion yuan. Not too long ago, it was common to hear that men's spending was less than that of dogs, and during economic downturns, people claimed that nobody wanted to spend money. But the data tells a different story. It's not about reluctance to spend. It's about where that money is going. With men's spending power on the rise, it's clear we're heading toward a future populated by singles. Concepts like consumerism in love, women's awakening, simps, male awakening, and the choice to remain child-free all intertwine, revealing how capitalists have been subtly influencing our mindsets. There's a viral saying that resonates online. Do you know why you're poor? Because you have a typical poor person's mindset. Only those who know how to spend money can make money. Another notable saying is, men are responsible for making money and supporting the family, while women are tasked with being beautiful. Is poverty really just a matter of not knowing how to spend? Must men always earn to make women look good? These notions are marketing gimmicks crafted by capitalists. After all, if poor people don't spend, how do businesses stay afloat? Over the past decade, advertising has saturated every holiday, even targeting International Children's Day, essentially telling men, it's time to give gifts, while reminding women, it's time to receive. Gift giving has become more advantageous than regular solo shopping for both genders, especially when men select thoughtful and often expensive gifts for women. Women typically don't return gifts, even if they're not fond of them, which provides a safety net for businesses. While it remains uncertain if love will flourish after a gift, skipping the gift almost always leads to complications. These dynamics complicate relationships. If a man tells a woman that it's a consumerism trap, she may respond by questioning his love for her. When he argues that luxury items are just a fool's tax, she still feels unloved. Most men with romantic experience tend to spend money to sidestep complications, largely due to the inherent differences in how men and women think. Historically, businesses often overlooked marketing gifts for boyfriends. It wasn't that they didn't want to cater to men. It just wasn't the right moment. Once a society experiences a women's awakening, the simp economy inevitably follows, boosting men's spending power, a trend clearly observed in Japan and South Korea. The shift in social thought is deeply intertwined with economic growth, and changes in economic status and transformations in production relationships also lead to changes in societal attitudes. In Japan, the rise of women's empowerment was set in motion during a period of rapid economic growth, fueled by a heightened demand for labor. During this time, over 200 companies went bankrupt due to worker shortages, and more than 4,000 companies turned to hiring foreign workers. This shift prompted many Japanese women to leave traditional roles and enter the workforce, often earning salaries on par with their male counterparts. This swift economic development spurred urbanization and financial advantages for both genders, significantly enhancing women's social standing and value. During World War II, Japan experienced a gender imbalance when a majority of men were lost in battle. In response, the government began to encourage childbirth, particularly of boys. By 1966, the birth ratio was 107 boys for every 100 girls. As the economy thrived, these young women emerged as key figures in society, increasing their social value and giving them a stronger voice in relationships. Consequently, the costs associated with marriage rose sharply. Weddings were expected to be held in luxurious venues, honeymoons needed to be taken abroad, and owning a house, car, and having stable finances became the norm. Even in the dating scene, Japanese men had to come to terms with the fact that their girlfriends might be dating multiple partners. Many men accepted this situation since economic pressures were relatively low, and earning money was easier, making them willing to invest time and resources in courting women. This change in male attitudes also impacted businesses. It's no overstatement to say that a woman could easily have multiple suitors competing to spend on her, which elevated her status in the eyes of businesses. When women demonstrated strong purchasing power, companies and the media were more likely to celebrate them, further boosting women's social standing and allowing extreme feminism to thrive under the influence of capitalism. However, after the bubble of Japan's rapid economic growth burst, the simp economy started to falter. Men began to wake up to the evolving dynamics, with more Japanese companies going bankrupt and workplaces becoming increasingly competitive. Many employers grew hesitant to hire women. When it came to hiring decisions, they focused primarily on cost-effectiveness, favoring men, particularly given the potential costs associated with women's menstrual cycles and childbirth. As competition intensified, many aspects of life changed, particularly in terms of male psychology. As earning money became more difficult and life pressures increased, many men started questioning the need to expend time and resources on pleasing women. An increasing number opted out of the traditional provider role in relationships, leading to a significant decline in women's purchasing power as fewer men were willing to pick up the tab. For businesses, this shift meant that women's value was no longer upheld by societal opinion, and the glorification of women began to fade. A notable transformation occurred. Valentine's Day in Japan and South Korea shifted from men giving gifts to women giving gifts to men. Despite this change, Japanese men's desire to marry remains low. Instead of pursuing marriage, many prefer to contemplate the meaning of life, considering marriage and parenthood secondary to enjoying the present. This reflects a broader awakening among Japanese men. Based on recent comparisons of marriage and consumption trends, we're witnessing what some might call a male awakening in our society. Whether it's Valentine's Day, Women's Day, or the Qixi Festival, businesses seem to be dialing back their promotional efforts. Romantic films no longer draw the crowds they once did, and ads have shifted focus. Instead of encouraging boyfriends to shower their partners with gifts, they now urge girlfriends to treat their friends. Promoting female friendships is proving far more effective than pushing romantic ideals. Meanwhile, men seem to be turning inward, prioritizing self-care over the pressure to please a partner. With marriage rates declining, divorce rates climbing, and economic pressures mounting, the traditional notion of pursuing marriage as a reward for romantic effort is losing appeal. The provider model, where men shoulder the financial burden, appears to be crumbling. Both men and women now find themselves caught between lingering traditional expectations and the realities of modern life. Historically, societal structures around marriage have evolved significantly. In matriarchal societies, marriage didn't exist. Men hunted while women gathered, and the stability of the latter gave women a dominant role. Without structured marital relationships, they practiced walking marriages, coming together only for procreation. Patriarchal societies flipped the dynamic, with men establishing stable marriages and women being treated as private property. Marriage became tied to wealth inheritance and lineage continuation. Monogamous marriage systems only emerged after revolutions reshaped women's social status. In modern China, marriage concepts have transformed across generations. Those born in the 1960s rarely experienced love-based marriages, adhering instead to arranged unions and traditional matchmaking. Men's higher social status and stable incomes meant divorce was uncommon. The 1970s generation witnessed the economic shifts of reform and opening up. Job stability became central to family life, with many divorces linked to financial insecurity. By the 1980s, the push for gender equality began to take root. Women increasingly rejected traditional marital expectations. Higher education for women correlated with higher divorce rates, with women often initiating separations. The 1990s saw even greater shifts as traditional marriage ideals came under scrutiny. Emotional disconnects grew, and the relevance of dowries, a relic of the past, was openly questioned. Under traditional norms, men worked outside while women managed the household and children. Men carried the financial load while women, despite striving for education and independence, were often still expected to accept dowries, a contradiction to gender equality. Upon marrying, women frequently struggled to balance family and career, with familial responsibilities often hindering professional growth. This loss of independence relegated many women to a secondary role in their households. Modern online discourse has further exacerbated gender divides, commodifying women's reproductive value and framing men and women as adversaries. Amid these challenges, the question remains: can women truly achieve full independence in today's world? According to World Bank data from 2021, labor participation rates in China stand at 74% for men and 62% for women. Meanwhile, a 2020 report from a recruitment platform revealed that the average monthly salary for men was 9,024 yuan, compared to 6,847 yuan for women. These figures highlight a significant challenge. Many women are unable to achieve true economic independence. Compounding this, the influence of media and cultural norms has left many women struggling with emotional independence as well. In this context, women's conflicting attitudes toward marriage, demanding more from men during a time of economic hardship, are widening the gender divide and contributing to the steady decline in marriage rates. Men, too, find themselves caught between traditional expectations and modern realities. With the rise of feminism and evolving social norms, expectations for men have only increased. They are now expected not only to provide financially, but also to take on household chores and co-parenting responsibilities. At the same time, many men in the dating market are showing a preference for women with lower education or income, hoping, perhaps unconsciously, that these partners will take on more domestic duties. For instance, a woman earning 5,000 yuan per month may aspire to a partner earning 30,000 yuan, underscoring the economic disparity between genders. As a result, average income men are losing ground in the dating market and are increasingly opting out of the pursuit of relationships. Instead, they are choosing to spend their earnings on themselves. This shift represents a kind of awakening among men, who are becoming more aware of their own value as consumers. Businesses are beginning to recognize this growing market, but societal progress marches on. Women cannot return to an era of arranged marriages, and as education continues to empower them, they are contributing more to society. Similarly, men are moving away from the so-called simp economy, realizing that sacrificing everything for a mere "you're a good guy" is no longer worth it. In a more developed society, independence becomes paramount, and individuals are increasingly seen as self-sufficient economic entities. True gender equality will only emerge when people contribute value proportionate to what they expect to receive. We live in an era driven by efficiency, where survival hinges on creating and acquiring value. Marriage, as an institution, is steadily declining. 4 years ago, the number of marriages in China had already dropped to less than half of previous levels. This trend is clear. Marriage is no longer the default lifestyle choice.